There's a question that keeps certain people awake at 3 a.m., replaying the same relationship for the fourth time in 5 years. Why does this keep happening to me? Not the same person, not the same city, sometimes not even the same gender or age group. But somehow, the same pattern. The charming person who turns cold. The friend who only calls when they need something. The partner who makes you apologize for things you didn't do. And here's the part that should unsettle you. It's not bad luck. It's not a coincidence. And it's definitely not just your type. You are being selected. Deliberately. Quickly. Almost instantly. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how they do it. And, more importantly, how to shut the signal off for good. Manipulators don't choose their targets randomly, and they don't choose them slowly. Research on interpersonal perception suggests that predatory personality types can form an impression of vulnerability in a stranger in under 5 minutes, sometimes less. They're not reading your horoscope. They're reading your body language, your warmth, your willingness to please. And the unsettling truth is that the very qualities that make you a wonderful friend, partner, or colleague, your empathy, your loyalty, your instinct to forgive, those are the exact traits that light up on their radar. In the next few minutes, we're going to break down the psychological signature that manipulators are trained, often unconsciously, to detect. We'll walk through the 4 traits that make you a target, the real reason self-blame keeps you stuck in the cycle, and this is the part you don't want to miss. The specific shift in behavior that makes you effectively invisible to them. Because once you understand the magnet, you can finally learn how to switch it off. Let's start with the trait you'd least expect to be a liability, empathy. Psychologists studying interpersonal dynamics have long noted that individuals high in trait empathy tend to display more open, responsive nonverbal behavior, more eye contact, more affirming nods, more mirroring of the other person's emotional tone. It's a beautiful trait. It's also, unfortunately, legible. Think about the last time you were at a party and a stranger started venting to you, unprompted, within minutes of meeting you. That wasn't random. Something in your face, your posture, your listening pattern told them, this one will hold space for me. Manipulative personalities, particularly those high in the so-called dark triad traits of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, are disproportionately skilled at what researchers call thin slicing, making rapid judgments from very little information. And what they're thin slicing for isn't malice. It's supply. Emotional labor they can extract without ever reciprocating. Your empathy isn't a flaw. But to the wrong person, it reads like an open door. Here's where it gets more insidious. Empathy gets you noticed. Loyalty is what keeps you there. Manipulators don't just want access, they want durability. Someone who won't leave at the first red flag. And loyal people, almost by definition, give second chances, third chances. They interpret a partner's cruelty as a bad day. They interpret withdrawal as, he needs space, not me. There's a phenomenon called the sunk cost fallacy. The more you've already invested in something, emotionally or otherwise, the harder it becomes to walk away, even when every signal tells you to. Manipulators intuitively exploit this. They front-load a relationship with intense charm, a stage psychologists call love bombing, specifically so that later, when the mask slips, you have a mountain of good memories to defend them with. But he wasn't always like this becomes the sentence that keeps you in the room 3 years too long. Now let's talk about forgiveness, because this is where the trap fully closes. People with a strong forgiveness reflex tend to have what psychologists call an external attribution bias in conflict, meaning, when something goes wrong, they instinctively search for context, for extenuating circumstances, for the reason the other person acted badly. It's generous. It's mature. It's also precisely what a manipulator is counting on. Here's the mechanism. Every time you forgive without requiring change, you're not just letting go of anger. You're training the other person's nervous system that consequences are optional. Behavioral psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, and it's the exact same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. Unpredictable reward, occasional punishment, and just enough hope in between to keep you pulling the lever. You're not weak for forgiving. You're wired for connection. But manipulators have learned, sometimes consciously, sometimes through years of trial and error, that your forgiveness is a resource they can budget for. This next part is the one almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important one. After the relationship ends, most people don't ask, what did they do to me? They ask, What's wrong with me that I let this happen again? That question feels like accountability. It actually functions as a trap. Because self-blame implies the solution is to become less trusting, less open, less generous. And that's precisely the wrong lesson. You weren't targeted because you were foolish. You were targeted because you were good, and goodness, unfiltered and undiscerning, is simply easier to exploit than cruelty is. Some people respond to this pattern by shutting down entirely, building walls, refusing closeness, deciding that love itself is the danger. That's understandable. It's also not the fix, because the goal was never to stop being empathetic, loyal, or forgiving. The goal is to keep every one of those beautiful traits and pair them, finally, with discernment. So how do you actually do this? How do you keep your empathy without keeping the target on your back? Psychologists point to one behavior above all others as the single strongest deterrent to manipulative personalities: early, calm, consistent boundary setting. Not anger, not ultimatums, just clear, unemotional follow-through. Here's why this works. Manipulative personalities often test new people with small violations: a canceled plan, a slightly inappropriate comment, a mild guilt trip, specifically to gauge the response. If the boundary bends, they've found their signal. If it holds, calmly and without drama, most will disengage and move on to someone else, often within the first few interactions. This means the most powerful thing you can do isn't to become guarded. It's to become consistent. Say what you mean the first time. Let no be a complete sentence. Notice when forgiveness is being requested without any accompanying change, and pause before extending it again. You don't need to become cold to stop being chosen by the wrong people. You need to become legible in a different way, as someone whose warmth comes with a floor beneath it. Here's the final thought I want to leave you with. The people who exploit empathy are not evidence that empathy is dangerous. They're evidence that empathy, on its own, is incomplete. Pair it with discernment, and it becomes something no manipulator knows how to metabolize. You were never the problem. You were simply undefended. And that's the one thing, starting today, you get to change. If this video helped you understand a pattern in your own life, I'd genuinely like to know. Tell me in the comments. What's the one boundary you wish you'd set sooner? I read every single one. And if you want more of this, the psychology behind the patterns we can't quite explain, subscribe, because next week we're going somewhere even deeper. I'll see you in the next one.